This was the last grand imperial tomb built before China was swept into the turbulent tides of industrialization and global trade. Its master, the Jiaqing Emperor of the Qing Dynasty, 爱新觉罗永琰. How did a massive empire with over 2,000 years of imperial history behind it fail to catch the tide of globalization? And how did it happen under the watch of a ruler known for being deeply diligent and benevolent? In the grand sweep of world history, what kind of monarch was the Jiaqing Emperor really? Today, we take you inside his final resting place, the Changling Mausoleum. The 15th son of the Qianlong Emperor, Jiaqing ruled China from 1796 to 1820. His contemporary on the British throne, King George III, located in Yi County, Hebei Province, just southwest of Beijing. The Changling Mausoleum rests within the Western Qing Tombs, a UNESCO World Heritage Site. It stands directly adjacent to the Tailing Mausoleum, the final resting place of his grandfather, the Yongzheng Emperor. Construction began in 1796, the very first year of the Jiaqing era, and the main architectural complex was completed by 1803. Yet, the site continued to evolve through a long series of subsequent renovations and expansions. The absolute final structure to be completed was the Sacred Virtue and Divine Marriage Stele Pavilion, a monumental tower built to chronicle the emperor's grand achievements. It was not finished until 1828, well into the 8th year of the reign of Jiaqing's son, the Daoguang Emperor. Following the strict traditions of the Qing court, this pavilion houses two massive stone steles, engraved in both Manchu and Chinese scripts. They immortalize the emperor's achievements, the most prominent of which was his benevolent rule. For the first 4 years of his reign, Jiaqing held the throne but little real political power, while his father, the retired Qianlong Emperor, continued to govern from behind the scenes. But in 1799, the Emperor Emeritus passed away, and the reins of power finally shifted to Jiaqing. During the imperial mourning period, the young emperor struck a decisive blow. He arrested He Sheng, Qianlong's ultimate favorite and one of the most notoriously corrupt officials in Chinese history. Many expected a bloody sweeping purge of He Sheng's vast political faction. Instead, Jiaqing showed unexpected mercy. He sentenced only He Sheng to death, leaving hundreds of his court associates entirely untouched. By choosing stability over vengeance, Jiaqing successfully navigated his first political crisis and firmly established his legacy of benevolence. The first structure behind the Divine Marriage and the Sacred Virtue Stele Pavilion is the five-archy bridge. True to its name, this grand stone bridge features 5 distinct arches. In ancient China, the number 5 symbolized imperial honor and superior majesty. Yet, in reality, the Jiaqing Emperor lived a deeply frustrating and suffocating life, one that fell far short of true imperial glory. The imperial bureaucracy continued to rot with corruption, eventually triggering a massive cataclysmic upheaval. In April 1803, the Jiaqing Emperor returned to the Forbidden City after paying respects to his ancestors at the Eastern Qing tombs. But as his grand procession passed through the Gate of Divine Prowess at the palace northern entrance, disaster struck. An assassin suddenly launched from the crowd, rushing straight toward the Imperial sedan chair. The elite Imperial guards, whose half-hearted training left them utterly unprepared for real combat, froze in terror, completely paralyzed by the unfolding course. Only 6 core royal ministers and guards managed to snap out of it, charging forward to wrestle the attacker to the ground. An investigation later revealed a shocking truth. The assassin, a man named Chen, was no master insurgent. He was simply an unemployed cook, feeling entirely hopeless and seeing no way out in life. He had decided to assassinate the emperor. Chen De's desperate assassination attempt was a stark reflection of the deep-seated societal fractures of the era. Fractures and corruption that left their mark directly on the architecture of this imperial tomb. The spirit way of the Changling Mausoleum breaks completely with tradition. While previous imperial paths were intentionally curved, a design that, according to traditional feng shui, would deflect bad luck and protect the tomb. Jiaqing's path casts a perfectly straight line. This change speaks volumes. It reflects the emperor's personal skepticism toward geomancy, but more practically, it was a calculated move to simplify constructing and slash costs. The hard truth was that by the Jiaqing era, Qing finances were already under severe strain. This financial strain is written into the stone of the tomb's guard of honor. The procession of stone guardians begins with a pyre of monumental pillars, followed by lions representing imperial majesty, elephants for good fortune, horses, and pyres of military and civil officials. Compared to the massive line-up at the Changling Mausoleum of his father, the Changling Emperor, built during the golden age of the Qing Dynasty, the scale here is drastically downsized. The statues themselves are sculpted in a noticeably thinner, more royal style, vividly echoing a dynasty entering its twilight years. Even the craftsmanship tells a story of decline. Qianlong's stone guardians were meticulously carved from single massive blocks of stone. At Changling, workers had to piece the figures together from multiple smaller rocks. Yet, even with these cost-cutting shortcuts, the project would still be plagued by severe engineering disasters. In 1808, just 5 years after Changling's completion, torrential rains battered the Beijing region. During a routine inspection of the site, officials made a shocking discovery. The main buildings were already severely cracked and leaking water. Even the premium timber installed only a few years prior was rotting away. The very stone statues standing before us today had split open. Under Qing law, the high-ranking officials who had overseen the construction were forced to pay for the restorations entirely out of their own pockets. If their personal fortunes fell short, the financial diet was legally passed down to their children and grandchildren. The restoration dragged on for 2 agonizing years, lasting until 1810. The work covered multiple damaged structures across the mausoleum complex, including the painstaking repair and rejoining of these fractured stone guardians. The truth was undeniable. Much of the massive budget initially allocated by the emperor had been siphoned off through embezzlement, a collaborative scheme between corrupt officials and private contractors who cut every corner imaginable. Yet, true to his famous reputation for mercy, the Jiaqing Emperor chose not to criminally prosecute or legally punish the guilty parties. Instead, he simply allowed them to pay for the repairs out of pocket, treating the financial burden as punishment enough. Beyond the stone guardians stands the dragon and the phoenix gate, a structure symbolizing the internal harmony of the emperor and empress in the afterlife. Inside the underground palace of Changling rest two souls: the Jiaqing Emperor himself, entombed in 1821, and the Empress Xiaoshurui of the Xitala clan, the biological mother of the future Daoguang Emperor. Tragically, she passed away suddenly just a year after Jiaqing ascended the throne. She was interred in Changling at the end of 1803. Their bond traced back to 1774, after the Qianlong Emperor secretly drafted the decree naming Yongyan his heir, breaking the traditions of marrying princes into powerful Manchu clans. Qianlong deliberately chose Lady Xitala, a woman from a modest background, to be his son's consort. This was likely a calculated political move by the fiercely authoritarian emperor to limit his secret heir's political power base. Under Qianlong's grueling scrutiny and absolute control, Yongyan found his only true sanctuary and comfort in the embrace of his wife. Lady Xitala bore him 3 children, including his second son, the future Daoguang Emperor. But the tragic premature death of their second daughter dealt her a devastating physical and emotional blow. When Jiaqing formally took the throne in 1796, his father still pulled out the political strength as Emperor Emeritus. Just a year later, in 1797, Lady Xitala suddenly passed away, having barely experienced life as Empress. Cruelly, the retired Qianlong Emperor ordered a drastic downsizing of her imperial funeral. Powerless against his father, Jiaqing could only swallow his grief and accept the decree. Only after Qianlong's death did Jiaqing find the freedom to mourn openly. Over the years, he frequently visited his late wife's casket, penning deeply sorrowful poems to express his enduring love and grief. At long last, in the year 1821, they were finally reunited in the silent depths of the Changling underground palace. Now, after traversing the long and solemn spiritual way, we arrive at the threshold of Changling's ritual area. But while history remembers the Jiaqing Emperor as a benevolent and deeply devoted monarch, the great Qing Empire he ruled was already riddled with deep structural scars, and the threat of aggression from Europe's newly industrialized nations was looming right on the horizon. Watching his empire fray under a mountain of complex crises, a separate Jiaqing found himself completely out of answers. Day after day, he threw himself into studying the ancestral instructions left by previous Qing rulers. frantically searching the words of his forefathers for a solution. Yet, while these traditional strategies might have held the line within a closed domestic context, they were utterly useless in helping China adapt and survive against the unstoppable tide of a changing world. In our next episode, we will step inside the inner ritual and burial grounds of the Changling Mausoleum. We will look back to the year 1816, the arrival of the second British embassy to China, and witness how the Qing Empire squandered its absolute last chance for equal trade and diplomacy before the drums of war began to beat. We will also unravel the profound helplessness and boiling frustration of the Jiaqing Emperor himself. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next episode.